Hello, my name is Bob Johnson with Micro Focus Global Customer Care, and in this video we're going to be talking about configuring iPrint client management for the Micro Focus iPrint appliance. The iPrint client management, also known as ICM, is a solution that allows you as an iPrint administrator to configure iPrint to automatically install iPrint printers when your users log into their Windows workstations. The prerequisites for configuring ICM are an iPrint appliance 2.x or 3.x with all updates applied, a Windows PC running the latest version of the iPrint client for Windows, which as of August 2017 is version 6.09, a directory server, either eDirectory or Active Directory, and users must be imported into the appliance from the eDirectory or Active Directory server in order to give them accounts on the appliance. And then the user's Windows account name must match the name of their imported account. And we'll look at the details of this when we configure ICM. Let's go through an ICM checklist before we get started. As mentioned, we want to make sure we have an iPrint appliance 2.x, 3.x with updates applied. In this video, I'll be using the latest iPrint appliance 3.0 with the latest updates. You'll also want to make sure your Windows PCs are running the latest iPrint client, which as of August 2017 is 6.09. You'll want to make sure you have access to your eDirectory or Active Directory server for the import user process, which we will do in this video. You'll also need to modify trustee rights assignment for public, which we will also demonstrate in the video. And then you're going to set the primary PSM address on the client, which is something I'll discuss and also demonstrate in this video. And then finally, we'll actually configure ICM. One of the first things you'll want to do in configuring ICM is import your users from your eDirectory or Active Directory tree. In this example, we'll be importing from an eDirectory tree. To do that, you access the management console through a web browser by specifying https:// the IP address or DNS name of your appliance, :9443, and then log in as VA admin and the password you assigned when you set up your appliance. While you're here, you can actually check, at least if you're running the 3.0 version of the appliance, you can check whether or not you've updated to the latest updates by clicking the online update button, and it'll show you needed patches. And as you can tell, I've installed the latest updates, so I don't have any needed patches at this point. You can go back home, click on Manage iPrint Appliance, and then you'll want to click on Directory Servers. And this is where you add the directory server information to import users. So we'll click the Add button. The server, you put in the DNS name or the IP address of your directory server. The alias name is optional. We'll leave it blank. Put in the user that has rights to the directory. In my example, I'm just going to go ahead and use admin and use this format: CN equals admin, O equals Novell, and then the password. The directory type, select the appropriate directory type. We're doing eDirectory, and it automatically fills in the appropriate information for the unique attribute and the account name attribute. Click OK. Then we need to tell it the base DN where it's going to look for these users, and in my case they're all in the Novell O. You can select search subtree if that applies to your particular environment, and click OK. and then the directory server is added. At this point, we click synchronization and we click synchronize now. At this point, you can see that the status is successful and it's added 13 users. The way the user import works is these users have been added to a MySQL database on the appliance. And every 8 minutes, there's a script that will run that will synchronize the users from the MySQL database into the eDirectory of the appliance. So if we were to check eDirectory right now, these users wouldn't exist. However, there is a script that we can run at a terminal that will force the synchronization to occur, and I'll show you that script right now. If you open a PuTTY session to the appliance, you can run this command, and that'll force the synchronization of the users from the MySQL database to the eDirectory on the appliance. Now, if we were to come into the iManager of the appliance, we could go into Directory Administration, Modify Object, and notice we have a Novell container, and in that Novell container you can see that there were objects imported. Once the users have been successfully imported and synchronized to eDirectory, the next thing to do is assign public rights to these specific attributes in eDirectory, which is what I'll demonstrate now. This is done in iManager following these steps. In iManager, click on Rights, click on Modify Trustees. You're going to browse to the appliance tree object. Click OK. You'll then click Assigned Rights for Public. You'll click Add Property. You need to click Show All Properties in Schema. And you scroll down and find the first one in the list is iPrint Printer IPP URI. Click OK. By default, Compare and Read are selected, which is what we want, and then we click Inherit. Unfortunately, we have to do this for each and every property. There's not a way to select all of them and assign the rights all at once. The next one in the list is iPrint ICM Client Flags. And I'll go through and do all of these in this video. I don't feel like I need to narrate what I'm doing. You'll get the idea after a couple of these. Alright, I've added all of the rights required for ICM to function properly, and I've made sure that they are all marked Inherit and they are all set to Compare Read. Once you're done doing that, click Done, and then make sure you click Apply or OK. Either way, we'll write the settings to eDirectory. Okay, at this point, now that we've got our users imported, we have the appropriate rights assigned to public. The next thing we need to do is configure the workstations to recognize the iPrint Appliance server as the primary server for ICM. And this can be done in a number of ways, and we'll demonstrate some of those now. The method used for registering the primary server address on the workstation so that the workstation will recognize the iPrint appliance as the server with the ICM configuration is to open a command prompt and type in the command iprnt cmd space dash uppercase S and then the IP address of the iPrint appliance. Just press enter. Once you do that, you'll get this message saying that the primary PSM server IP address is registered successfully. Now, this probably isn't practical in many environments to go around to every single workstation and run this command. So you can call this command through a login script. And what this command is actually doing is it's writing a registry entry, which we can see right here under HKey local machine software, Novell iPrint, and settings. And in the registry, you'll see primary PSM address with the IP address of the appliance. So one option would be to export this registry key into a .reg file, and then you could merge the data from that reg file using some type of software management utility, or even through a login script you could call a reg file, and that way you could populate this registry entry to all of your workstations, as opposed to going to each and every workstation and manually executing that command. Okay, now that we've imported the users into the appliance, we set up the appropriate rights for public to those specific ICM attributes, and we've set the primary server address on the workstation, we can come into iManager now and actually configure iPrint Client Management, which is under the iPrint task and iPrint Client Management. For our purposes, we're going to modify the specific user object that we imported into the appliance. And if you recall, when we did our import, we got the Novell container with a number of users, and in this test we're going to modify the user Bob. And remember, Bob is also the local Windows account username that I'm logging into, and the password on that local user account matches the password for the Bob account that exists in the eDirectory tree where we imported this user from. So selecting Bob, I can click OK, and this is the default screen you see under iPrint Client Management. And right now it's selected to do not update workstations, which means there is no ICM configured for Bob. Now if I unselect this and I click Add, I then can browse to the printer object and select it and click OK. This, at the most basic level, is an iPrint client management configuration. I am telling the ICM configuration to install this particular printer for user Bob the next time he logs in to the workstation. And one thing that I like to do if I'm setting this up for the first time and I just want to see if this is going to work properly, I'll click over here on Advanced Settings and I'll actually tell it to display the ICM printer and client configuration in a dialog. And that way I can see what's going on, including possible errors. So with these settings now configured, if I click Apply, what should happen when we jump over to our Windows 7 PC where Bob is logged in, we should see these ICM settings take effect. So let's look at that now. Okay, so on our Windows 7 machine, one of the nice features of the latest iPrint client for Windows is under the properties, if you right click, there's an option here to refresh ICM. In earlier versions of the client, you actually had to restart the workstation for ICM to kick off. But in this case, we'll just go ahead and do a refresh on ICM. And what should happen is it should go out and read the configuration settings on the appliance for this particular user. And what I expect to see eventually is a dialog box. Here it is. And it's showing me exactly what's happening with the ICM configuration. Now if I slide out and look at exactly what's happening with this printer, the result I'm getting is a failed to install. And the details, iPrint client, no printer driver has been associated with this printer. So this is one of the benefits of having this type of display show up when you're configuring this for the first time. Because in this particular case, I have uploaded a printer driver for Windows 10, but not for Windows 7. So this particular message is accurate in this case, and it's letting me know as an administrator that I need to associate a Windows 7 printer driver for this particular printer model. At this point, I can just go ahead and close this dialog. And you'll notice the little status, the ICM refreshed successfully. Alright, so now as an iPrint administrator, seeing that warning message about the printer driver, I've corrected the issue by associating a Windows 64-bit printer driver to the printer. Now if I come back here and I do another refresh on ICM, I should see the dialog come back up again. And this time what should happen is the printer should install successfully, and I should actually see a success status. Notice that the close stays grayed out while this printer is being installed, or while any of the ICM configuration settings are being applied. Once it has finished processing the configuration, that close button should become active. Now I can slide out to the right and we should see a successful status, which we do. The printer is installed, and now I can close. And we get the status saying that it has been updated or refreshed successfully. The next thing we'll look at is some of the other configuration settings that can be set in ICM. There are many other options that can be used using iPrint client management, and we'll take a look at those now. Before we do that, let's quickly look on the actual workstation. On each workstation where the iPrint client is installed, there is a folder under C:\NDPS, and in that folder there are some log files, and we could go in under users, under Bob, and we can see an ICM log. This can be helpful in troubleshooting ICM issues. You just open up that file. It'll show you information from the last refresh, and in some cases, you'll see some additional information that might help you troubleshoot the issue. So now we'll take a look at some of the additional configuration settings in ICM that are found in iManager. So if we go back to iPrint Client Management, look at our Bob user. Here we have the printer that I installed. Now I can do some things with this particular printer. I can set it as the default printer for the workstation when it gets installed. If I don't want that to be the default printer any longer, I just click this minus button to remove it. I can also set it as temporary. The temporary printer option is good to use in a situation where you may only want that printer installed for that particular login. And then once the user logs off the workstation or the workstation's rebooted, that printer gets removed. You can also, if you have multiple iPrint printers in your environment, and you know that there are specific printers on workstations that you want removed, you can add them to the printers to remove list, and it will uninstall those printers. You can also use this option, allow only specified printers to reside on workstations. And let's say you wanted a specific iPrint printer installed, or a set of iPrint printers installed, but only those, and you wanted all others removed, then you could use this particular option. This only affects iPrint installed printers or iPrint printers. Under client configuration, there are a number of settings, and I'm not going to go into a lot of detail or much detail at all on each of these, because you can actually just click the little help icon, and there is very good documentation for what each of these particular options can do for you as an iPrint administrator. So I would take the time to read through those and get the detailed information on what each of those settings will do. I know some of the more common settings would be down here under this particular section. Show the iPrint icon in the system tray, notify users when their print jobs complete or need attention, allow users to launch a printer folder from the iPrint tray icon, and then include a URL link on the iPrint tray icon menu. You can actually put in the IPP page for your particular environment and have that pushed out through ICM. But by default, as you saw, do not update workstations is selected. And then under advanced settings, we use these just to show you some of the logging capability. But again, most administrators, I don't think, display these results. They don't want their end users to see a dialog pop up during the ICM process. And then another option you can use is this trusted site list. You can add your IPP page to this list, and what it will do is it will add this as a trusted site to Internet Explorer. And again, you can get detail by clicking on the help, and it'll tell you what some of the specific options are. It also goes into detail about how ICM works in regard to what if I have ICM set on a user, what if I have ICM set on a group or a container. And for the purposes of this discussion, we won't go into those details because it is very well documented again through the help. This concludes configuring iPrint client management on the Micro Focus iPrint Appliance 2.x or 3.x. For additional information, you can refer to these links for documentation. The first link is a link to the overall process of configuring the ICM on the appliance. The second link is specific to configuring rights for those additional attributes we demonstrated earlier. And also, as a clarification, in earlier versions of the iPrint client management and the iPrint client for Windows, it was not supported to have the Novell client installed on a Windows workstation. But with the latest iPrint client for Windows and the primary PSM address set on the workstation as we demonstrated, ICM will work with the Novell client for Windows installed as well. I hope you found this information informative and useful, and thank you for watching.